You, Mike.
Kia ora, no mai haere mai. Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Nelson City Council. Konnichiora o whakatū. I'll ask that you all stand for the opening prayer.
Sovereign in all things, bless this city and its people and our planet. Guide us in local government each day, that our decisions may be wise and just, and magnify your holy name. Amen.
Yeah, what we do need to do is make sure we've got Councillor Barker. Oh, have we forgotten about Councillor Barker? Have we got him on? Yes, right. Hang on, we'll just wait. We'll just get a Councillor Barker sorted out. Hold on, a couple of minutes. Gosh, there's a lot to do up here this week, isn't there? It's rather busy.
I had answer phone last time.
All right. Wonder where he is on his trip. He's on his way to Dunedin, Otaputi, where I grew up. And Pet grew up. Yeah. 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 We're still trying.
Hello, Robin.
Oh, hello, Ian. Where are you?
Hello.
Where are you?
Oh, I'm just past Culverton.
Oh, are you? Okay, all right. You got somewhere comfortable to stop?
I have stopped.
Okay, I'm pleased. I'm pleased you start. All right, so we've done the opening prayer, and then I of course got to apologies and went, oh, hang on, we've got to get you online. So we've just done.
Right.
So there's no apologies to receive. We're now at the interests. Any interests to declare today? Anyone got any interests that we need to declare? And now we're up to public forum. Do we have any public forum for today? Nope, we don't have any public forum for today. And now we're up to the Mayor's report. And I'm just going to speak briefly at this point to Council to say thank you very much for agreeing to have this extraordinary Council meeting today. There are times when I have sat in this room and felt that we have got an opportunity to really make progress. When we signed off on our vision as the smart little city, it meant something to me. It meant a huge amount to me. And some of the things that we do here are not laid out in clauses and in detail and exact budgets and a preciseness, but they're set out with a real sense of purpose of why you, as people around the table, give boundless hours, most of you, huge amount of time to this role. And you do it, for others of you, you do it trying to do full-time jobs, juggle all sorts of other commitments, and still be here to actually participate in leading your communities. I don't bring matters like this up lightly. I don't bring them up in this and bring them through lightly. And part of the reason this is here today is that I think councils around New Zealand are listening very, very closely to their communities. And they're listening and they are hearing a very different voice than they heard even 2 or 3 years ago. They're certainly hearing a different voice than they heard 5 years ago. In our region, and I can tell you in our region, when I have been out, and it's been a really tough start to the year, from some of us sitting in this room, we didn't get much sleep really, from sort of the start of February for quite some time, and some of us are still probably on a bit of a recovery mode. It was tough. We had a civil defence emergency in this region like nothing I've ever seen before. The year before we had some other ones like I've never seen before. I'd never seen the storm surge on Rocks Road like I did on that occasion, and the speed, as you know, some of you who are sitting in this room, the speed that the water came as it came up the Maitai and started to come up. Fortunately, it wasn't raining, or we would have been in terrible, terrible trouble. And so when I brought this to you today, I really reflected on the where we are, and I'm going to speak to that some more when we get to the report. But I'm just really wanting to say to you that part of my role as Mayor is to be able to see ahead, and that's your role too. And I listened to some of the submissions that we've had come through. The message has been so consistent. I don't think I've ever heard messages that have been so aligned. But what I also know, that one of the hardest things for me to achieve as Mayor is to take the community with us. And so when I think about what we've got to do here, it is about setting up a process, it is setting up a conversation, and a lot of conversations with our community to actually hear the voices and the concerns, but also the opportunities. And you will remember that I came back from Denmark, and I've said to many of you that for me, it was like finally the switch went on. I went, I've been to a country that thinks like me, that understands as a mediator what it means. And Ian, we're just getting a bit of noise from your phone. I think it's wind.
If Ian mutes himself when he's not talking.
We're just going to text him. I'm just going to keep going because I don't want to hold you up for too much longer. When I went to Denmark, I came back and said to you, it was like switch went on. And I found a country that thinks like I do. I found a country that understands the importance, and as a mediator, a lot of my role has been in dispute resolution and actually bringing people together who have got a different range of views and finding what I call, common interest, speaking like a mediator. And what I saw in Denmark was a country that was very clear on its purpose. It decided after the oil crisis what it wanted to do. It wanted to focus on sustainability because it actually saw a whole economy sitting behind that, a way of delivering jobs, business, industry in a way that would be good for the citizens of Denmark but also for the globe, and boy have they succeeded. You think about the companies, and Councillor Walker, you'll know this from when you've been to the water conferences, and you think about those companies that are out there doing some of the smartest work around water technology. Well, a lot of them are coming out of Denmark. You think about alternative energy sources for wind. Go look at Denmark. And now what they've done is they've really said, okay, we're going to put this together and do this with climate change. And they have seen it as an absolute opportunity. They take the approach, which I really like, of a quadruple helix approach to problem solving. At the table sits government. At the table sits business. At the table sits research, science and education institutions. And at the table sit the citizens. And it is through that process that they have been able to get consensus and deliver some of the most, some of the best well-being in the world. So here is an opportunity, and they said to me, do you think that we could have an alignment with New Zealand? And I said, yes, I do think we can do that. And I met with people from every level of government, but down to councils just doing small projects, small water treatment projects, or dealing with their waste and using that for creating energy and all sorts of things is what I saw. So it was a really quite special opportunity, and I want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to go there. That trip was backed by private sponsorship from organisations in our community because they thought that was a pretty important thing to do. And you heard Matua Paul Morgan come in today and say to you a very clear message about, as the chair, he chairs the Te Ihu Economic Development Steering Group, and you heard his message about the opportunity for this region to retain and attract talent. And I absolutely believe that aligns with our smart little city vision. I'm going to talk to the paper perhaps in more detail in a moment, but as we move into it. But I want to say one more thing to you. One of my biggest frustrations, and I know you share it as well, is that we have people that come to talk to us, and they're innovators. They've got great ideas. And they want us to hear, when they come into this building and they engage with us, they want to hear, how can I help you? that's a great idea. And you heard Lindsay yesterday, Lindsay Watt, and he said to you, in his class, I don't know if you were there, it was the end of the day, and he said to you, he was working with students and said to them, here's your challenge. And he said, we've got to stop saying no because. We've got to start saying yes if. And this is a yes if message that's going to come to you in a moment. I'm hoping that you can support it. I know this is going to be challenging for many of you, and I just want you to see it as a yes if moment.
Madam, can I just ask for clarification on page 10 under financial impact?
I'm not at the paper yet, Deputy Mayor, but I will be in just a moment.
I don't think it's right because it's changed from yesterday. It had $100,000 per year. You haven't got PA in this time.
It's probably because it's been corrected. Ms McDonald will be able to speak to that in a moment.
Thank you.
The paper.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm now going to move on to item 6, which is the paper, and I will signal now that, in fact, if Robin's happy with that, I'm going to actually move the recommendation. And seconded by Councillor Fulk.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move one of the options.
Oh, well, it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Fulton for what is in the recommendation, which is there, Councillor, so you'd have to do it as an amendment.
I'd like to move an amendment.
All right, well, do you want to hear from the officer in terms of questions first, or do you want to you signal the amendment now and then we can have it?
I would like to hear the options first, the preamble.
All right, thank you. All right, so I hand over to Ms McDonald, who's going to present the report.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to say at the outset that the reason my name is on this report is just because a number of staff have contributed to it, particularly Melissa from the strategy team, so I just want to acknowledge that work. Staff are recommending that Council declare a climate emergency. Obviously, climate change is one of those issues that is difficult to deal with. We're much better set up to tackle immediate threats, and something that grows day by day is very difficult for people to address. So the value of a declaration like this is that it helps create that sense of urgency in the community and helps the community take the steps they need to take now in order to avoid the worst impacts of climate change later on. So you've outlined those impacts in the annual plan and talked about Council's work programme, and over the last 2.5 days we've heard from many in the public their views on climate change. We have assessed this declaration in terms of the significance and engagement policy, and we consider it to be of a medium significance because although there is a lot of public interest, in terms of changes, Council's not required to add staff or allocate extra money or change the work programme. So we've assessed it as a medium significance. We would be coming back at the deliberations meeting to outline the whole package of climate change work and any options for other things that you might want to do to support it in future. I think the report is hopefully straightforward. I'll just perhaps answer that one question from the Deputy Mayor while I'm speaking. So that was under financial impact on page 10. So it was not clear in the first draft version that you saw, and the Deputy Mayor pointed that out. So what we're saying here is that there's 100,000 proposed to be in the 2019-20 year. So that's the 58,000 that you have every year in the LTP, plus an extra 42,000 that is proposed to go in for next year. So that would make 100,000 in the 1920 annual plan.
Okay, thank you. All right. Clear on that, the financial, that answer to that question. Any further questions around that? In relation to that financial one? I'm just covering off the financial one. Councillor Rutledge.
Thank you. So does that mean it's the staff's view that there will be no more money requested with respect to item 3?
The staff view is that there is no requirement to add more money. But as you'll see, yes, from item 3, that we will be bringing back a report which will allow you to consider options. So it's entirely up to council whether it wants to stay. And many councils have declared and just provided their current action as their action plan, or you could choose to add other things. That's a council decision for later.
Okay, thank you. So how did that figure of $100,000 come? What's it made up of? What does it do? What does it deliver?
So that's, the 100,000 I'm referring to is what is in the annual plan and what you've consulted with the community on. So it covers the work you've agreed to around emissions gathering and a whole range of things that we're doing.
So this declaration today, and what we're suggesting, is not recommending 1 cent of extra money be spent beyond what's already in our long-term and annual plan.
Yes, that's correct. The decision today does not add any funding or resource to the existing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Nikki, thank you for your report there. Nikki, why have you chosen a ranking of medium significance for this item? Because it is declaring a climate emergency. And you hear our speakers during the day today and yesterday and also on Tuesday saying it was the most urgent of matters to grapple with, and we're 20 years late, and yet you've ranked it as a medium significance. Now, I would have thought it would be of high significance, and if it is going to be of high significance, what would that entail?
Through the chair, when we consider significance against the policy, there are a number of areas we have to look at. I mean, one is the level of public interest, but also things like how much it will cost, whether it's irreversible, all of these matters.
Hello, Councillor Barker, we can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
Oh, good.
Thank you.
I can hear you again now, yes.
Thank you.
So weighing those up, we felt it was medium because there was, in fact, as we've just discussed, no extra funding. If you were looking at it purely from a leadership significance, then I think it would be high significance, but our significance has lots of different elements to balance up. So if you had said it was a high significance under our policy, in fact, you've already just consulted with the community and have heard their views, which is what you would want to do for high significance, so it wouldn't require any extra step.
So this has been, excuse me, Your Worship, I will just ask a follow-up. This has only been introduced at the point of the annual plan process. I mean, it hasn't really gone out to the community.
Through the chair, what we're saying is that you have presented climate change as a key priority of your annual plan, and you've put together all the things you intend to do, and you've said how this will be a focus for council. And you've...
Sorry, Nikki, sorry. Councillor Barker, we're getting a lot of noise, so what I'm going to do is we're going to mute you, so we can't hear you, but you'll be able to hear us, and I will come to you regularly to check on questions, see if you've got questions, all right?
Okay,
Are you okay with that?
that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
And so having heard from the community on those issues, we believe this is a decision that you can take because you've got a good understanding of the community views on the matter.
So I've had Councillor Courtney and Councillor Rutledge, so just on any, we were on that financial part at the back with any of those bits, but any other questions on the financial bit, Councillor Ackland?
I was going to follow on that point so I can wait.
Oh, okay. On the financial, Councillor Noonan.
So, excuse us, but the Deputy Mayor and I have sort of been talking about it, but 42,000 in the AP, but 100,000 is now proposed, so that's an additional 58. So maybe you need to clarify that 58.
So when you did the long-term plan, you put in 58,000 for climate change per year, and then for this annual plan, you proposed an additional 42. Right. So it gives us 100.
That's great, thank you.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm asking my question because I want to check I'm right, but I also think it might be useful for some members of the table, around the table, who might be concerned about what we might be about to do. So council has a budget of around about $100 million a year. We've got $100,000 in this annual plan for climate change. So I guess that means that we're spending less than 0.1% of our budget on climate change. Is that right?
Through the Mayor, yes, that's correct if we just look at that 100,000 budget, but what I would say is the impacts of climate change are being felt across a lot of activities, and so we are being drawn into spending money to combat climate change in a lot of areas. So if you went through, you could extract probably more spending that we're being required to take.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Fulton.
Oh, yes, thank you, through the chair. So my questions were just to clarify, because in our annual plan, we asked our community, do you think that putting resources into helping our region deal with climate change is important? We then asked our community that the overall increase in budget for this work in 2019-20 is 42,000 over and above the 58,000. Do you support this additional level of investment? And then we asked our community if you have other ideas about how council can help our region respond to climate change, please let us know. So the community has had an opportunity to ask us to spend more money, and it might be that it's not in the climate change hat, but we will look at that after this recommendation. If this is approved through the annual plan deliberations process, we will consider whether in other areas we might fund additional amounts to support that mitigation and adaptation, or it might be even that we save money, for example, if we manage to turn the air conditioning off occasionally. So we might find ways where we're saving money because we've, put LEDs in everywhere, I don't know. So is that part of that's not just this 100,000, it's looking at other ways where we can work on climate change issues?
Yes, through the chair, you'll have that opportunity at the deliberations meeting, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan. And Councillor
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
A couple of questions from me. At page 11 and number 6, we haven't had any engagement with Māori over this particular issue. Something that we always do. This is a concern to me. Why is that not being done?
Through the chair, there has been a communication with all iwi chairs and the chief executives, and the opportunity to come and speak around this was given.
And when was that done?
Oh, very recently. So
So they haven't had time?
No, they haven't had time to reschedule, go through that process. But I have to say that, and I would update you shortly, but that the matter, I have to say the matter was picked up by Chair Harvey Ruru, Chair of Te Atiawa, and Te Atiawa have been able to contact all of their trustees, and Harvey has come back this morning to say yes, he supports, Te Atiawa do have support in climate change declaration.
So this
other
needs
iwi
to
have
be
to go through their process
to include that there has been some contact with iwi, with Māori?
There can be. But I think in terms of where we go, that is part of that's probably the most important conversation that we've got to have in a context of where we move forward for collaboration.
And that's what worried me, because it said none. So I'll move to page 7 at 511, and it talks about significance being determined. Our significance and engagement policy, including levels of changes in levels of service or delivery of service. And I mean, the report isn't very detailed on what it actually means, which is why I asked the minister, what does it mean to the man on the street? And I would have to say, I don't think he helped me at all on that, because I'm looking for some examples, what does it actually mean to the people that haven't had a chance to discuss this with us? So can the staff explain is there going to be a change in levels of and delivery of services, and if we do this?
Through the chair, no, not as a result of this declaration. But as we've said, you can discuss at deliberations if there are any other steps you want to take. But no, there's no change in funding or staff resourcing or levels of service as a result of making this declaration.
So on that, Madam Mayor, sorry, just carrying on, I might as well do the whole lot at once. When it says at 5.3 that it will give rise to expectation in our community that council will do and what it can show in leadership and all those other things that are mentioned there, there will be an expectation of change by everyone. Are we going to end up being hit with the stick that we're going to deliver potentially if we sign this off today? Are the public going to come back and say, well, you're not doing what we expected you to do from either camp? Because we have heard from 81 submitters that they want something seriously done. I think there's probably a large number of people in the community that would agree with that, but they haven't had an opportunity. And I feel that that's the crux of it for me today. Any help in that area?
Through the chair, yes, I think that as the report reflects, that if we declare a climate change emergency, there will be expectations. I mean, I think what we've heard is that those expectations are there anyway, and we would be hearing from the public and having pressure, whether we declare or not. I think that is something that we will see more and more of.
So one of the things we've discussed as a senior leadership team is that as these activity management plans get reviewed, every one of them will have to have a section on climate change and how every activity is going to respond to climate change. So over the next 12 months, I expect this council will be involved in a series of workshops where we are talking about the implications of climate change and how they change our budgets and how our priorities change. So it's coming at any rate.
Just in response, Mr Chief Executive, thank you. I think we would be doing that in any case, whether we sign something or whether we declare something or not, because it is top of mind. Thank you.
Councillor Delberg and then Councillor Eklund.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So my question really goes back to financials and really the 42k extra. I'm really thinking of what is our spend on environment, because when we take climate change, it's made up a lot of things. And one of them is what we actually do to the environment to stop damaging it. What is the actual spend on our environment, and what's the percentage we spend out of our budget?
This week. So the CFO question or a...
So I can say that percentage-wise, it's 10% for the environment, but that is broad ranging. I can't remember the exact number in terms of budget.
So I think when we use the word 42,000, I think we're disingenuous to ourselves in the fact we spend money on environment and those projects. Also some work on transport, our bus system, that's been mentioned. Is our bus system project that we did a lot of work on last year, electronic ticketing, trying to save people time, how's that actually going in relationship to thinking positively already about climate change?
Through the chair, what I would say to that is the difference with the 42,000 is that is extra that we were consulting on, so that's why it's highlighted in the annual plan. But you're quite right that there are a lot of activities already going on across the board that do contribute in different ways to mitigating risks and reducing emissions.
And following that up, as comment by the Chief Exec, my concern really is we're also going to put staff under a lot of pressure. And I get the kind of cute term, we're not going to have any changes to the annual plan. But we all know we're going to end up having to review and reports, and staff are going to have to do other things, and things will change. Or do you don't accept that? Do you just say $42,000 is it?
If these resolutions were passed, one of them is it requests the Chief Executive develop a program of actions and report back for the Council annual plan deliberations. We would probably have some options in there about how we could accelerate things, and there'll be some money associated with that. But we're just starting on a path, really. I can't think of anything that we could just drop into place tomorrow, and you'd want to make sure that you were getting a coordinated approach across the council and your best bang for bucks in terms of reducing carbon emissions. But yeah, if this is passed, you appreciate this has moved quite quickly. If this is passed, then we'd have 2 weeks to come up with the start of a plan.
I'd like to also pick up the point on the climate change and our discussion around environment in the annual plan. And I'm kind of thinking we're already in the annual plan, said, and Councillor Fulton made a couple of comments, but we've already got this as our number one priority, one of our priorities. We've already got it as urgent. And we've already got a lot of positive comments back on that. And the groups that actually comment are the Environment Centre, AZ Wood Energy, Climate for Change, Sports Tasman even, Nelsuck Inc., Ngāti Tama, CAN, Community Action Group, Climate Change, Resilience NZ Limited have all said well done to us. They've also said well done on our environment report, well done on Ngāti Tama, who came in and presented on their environment stuff. So at the moment there seems to be a large amount of people very happy where we are right now, and there we are progressing. We are progressing deliberately along a line of putting in programs and processes that do something for our city. To the point where we sent the mayor off to a climate change event over in Denmark. We're looking at doing stuff now. So the comment is, why I'm mentioning that is, the challenge for me and the accuracy on urgent and a priority versus climate change emergency, with a report that looks very thin, dare I say. And my question to you as staff, would you have appreciated more time to actually deliver us a better report than that? Because that looks like the reports I had in my first year.
Through the chair, what I would say is, no, we were not looking for more time on the declaration. What we will take is more time is when we come back to you with the action plan. And I understand your point about we're already doing or proposing a lot and we're getting good feedback on that. But I think the declaration is that extra step of leadership and helps create the momentum to get the community on board and join voices all around New Zealand and further afield.
Good, which leads me nicely to 5.5. Start proposing that we declare a trigger advice from the Chief Exec. What exactly is a declaration trigger advice from the Chief Exec?
Through the chair, that is just another way of saying what we've said in the recommendation, that we will come back to you at the deliberations time with a further report on what that plan might look like.
So my other important question really, and I'm going to follow up on Councillor Noonan's comments about the information to iwi. So my question is, I know we got it in the paper or the media on Monday. When exactly did the iwi get involved in this?
As soon as I could get an email away to the iwi chair, so Tuesday, I think. Tuesday.
So my...
Possibly Wednesday.
So my question is, we've had a partnership model with the iwi. We have had massive feedback, including iwi now involvement in the Waimea Inlet program, which has moved on from 10 random reports to one quite tidy event, which we link in with the TDC, working with our partners. My question is, do we think that is a very fair way to be treating our partners when we set 6 weeks ago a process that said we would include them at the start of events?
I'm going to go across just in terms of iwi's views on climate change to Ms Barton, to see if she, in terms of reflecting the views of our community and particularly our treaty partner.
I think the key issue here is that climate change was clearly articulated as a focus for the council through the annual plan report that went out. iwi have been actively engaged in that process, and as the mayor's indicated, there has been follow-up conversation with the iwi. And I would have expected...
Ms Barton, just in terms of that, I mean, you've been running quite a process through the Nelson Plan development. Are you able to give us any sort of sense? You've got iwi working groups moving through.
So the resource management team through that we've been engaging with the iwi, very clearly climate change is one of the issues for them that they want some action around.
So my question again, I'm not quite satisfied in that answer in case you get it. Because I take the responsibility of being sitting around here, and when I say we're going to join, or we say we're going to join a partnership model, a lot of that comment is, and why they don't turn up, is we don't deliver, and they're always short of resources, and can't be bothered with the engagement. That's my opinion, so it might be someone else might have a different one. And I need to actually mention that at our last meeting only about a week and a half ago, climate emergency was not mentioned. Now, I would have thought that would have come up in the partnership discussion if they knew, or we knew at that stage. The fact that I feel really strongly that we're moving away from the process that has got us some very good outcomes, some very good results, to back to very quickly put together thoughts. And I'm loath to think that as a councillor, I'm heading and going to agree with that. I don't even think it's fair on our staff. So at the moment I am gathering, correct me if I'm wrong, they heard it in the media. Did you? Because we didn't actually advise them before it hit the media.
In this instance, no, there wasn't an email that went to the iwi chairs and chief executives before that, and when we move on, I'll speak to the process of where this, how this has got here today. Councillor Ackland.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's fascinating watching the questions, and I've got a couple as well. When on the significance policy, as I understand it, and the advice from staff that we rely on is that it, although it has a perception of significance, obviously vast significance in terms of a moment of crisis, which is what we've been hearing from submitters through the annual plan, it's not significant in terms of its legal consequences on council, so therefore it doesn't qualify for significance, so therefore it doesn't need to go out for a separate round of consultation. Yeah, so it's calling it medium significance doesn't mean it's not of significance. It just means it doesn't trigger a legal process of consultation.
It's through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, because I think that's the message that I'm hearing loud and clear from the community, is that actually we are at a tipping point in a moment of crisis and they really want to see some action. And my question really is, well, I think it's a question, I'm just trying to think it through, is the dollars that, because I share the view that's coming over here, is that if we don't, if it's, but from the other perspective I should note, is rather than a concern over spending more money through empty rhetoric and non-binding resolution, my concern is that we're not going to be giving it funding when it is such a moment of crisis. And so what do we need to do if we make a declaration? What's the next step for council to actually put some concrete behind the words, some steps to actually reach those goals? What is that?
Through the chair, the very first step would be at the deliberations meeting, where we will bring a paper which will say this is what we're currently doing, and here are options for you to accelerate, and you can choose what level or none that you wish. So that would be your first step to take a concrete action.
That's great. And can I just ask, if so, concrete actions means money, which is what I'm hearing is the concern over there and the excitement over here, is how do we then make that decision in the context of budgeting for the annual plan? Can we do that without the consultation going out for more money, or because we've signalled an increase, we can actually increase that further depending on our deliberations because we're not restricted?
Yes, so you will have heard from the submitters, based on their input, you will have the ability to adjust budgets. So that's the normal process.
You couldn't just quietly add $2 or $3 million in and say, we consulted on climate change and this is what we're doing. So some money could be added in, but not huge amounts. You just can't change the direction of the annual plan at the 11th hour.
Thank you, because I think that's where I'm nervous about really, is rhetoric versus, and people believing in the rhetoric versus, really sort of steps. Because I think at a time of crisis, people do have a real expectation that crisis means immediate resourcing of a solution. That's what kind of when we talk about civil defence crisis and stuff, that's what the whole point of it is it's suddenly just all bets are off and the problem's fixed. And that's the kind of language that we're adopting here. So I don't want to mislead the community in terms of what we're doing. I'm really keen to see some flexibility around that, and that certainly I don't have a question, so I'm going to stop and save it for debate, I suppose. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fulton. I just would say the word isn't crisis in this. This is it's emergency. It has a different meaning to me. Crisis is throw your hands up. Emergency is roll your sleeves up. Councillor Fulton.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So I had some questions around the actual declaration of a climate emergency and what that means to this council and to the community. So my first question is, Councillor Noonan mentioned that it's top of mind and that we'll be looking at bringing climate change action, and the Chief Executive responded saying that we'll be bringing climate change action through all of our asset and activity management plans. But climate change has been, in my mind, top of mind for 30 years. So many of us have been advocating and talking about climate change for 30 years and asking our local governments and central governments to step up and do things, and asking our businesses to step up and change, and asking individuals to step up and change, and we haven't seen that happen. So one of the things which I want to explore is, in making this emergency declaration, does it send a signal to the community that we are now, like we had the chance to do preventative healthcare, we are now the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, and this is an emergency and we need to respond with a strategic planning. It doesn't necessarily mean more money, it means strategic planning, so we address it and give hope back to the community and give opportunities to the community to change the way they live their lives. So for me, is that what your intention is in terms of declaring that, in terms of preparing that report, what do you see that declaration meaning?
Through the chair, as staff, we are putting this as an opportunity for something for you to do, but ultimately all of these things depend on council decisions. So if you want to turn it into real action and programs, that's the council decision. It's not something that staff can make happen. So it's up to the council what your intention is around the declaration. Okay, thank you. Councillor Rutledge is next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You just mentioned emergency versus crisis, and I think language is incredibly important. And a crisis is a time of intense difficulty or danger, which sounds quite appropriate. Emergency is a serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. So I just think it's worth reflecting on that in the context of what we're doing here. So my question, I do have quite a number, and 48 hours lead into this affords lots of time for emergency questioning and not a lot of time for well thought out action. But in determining the significance, are you really saying that if council declares an emergency, one that I'm assuming we have no idea on how long the state of emergency will go for, that it will have no major impact on the level of service provided by council or the way in which services are delivered, reading from 3.2 in significance engagement policy?
So, Councillor Fulton commented that climate change has been an issue for 30 years. I think certainly for the last 10 years I've been very conscious of it, and we all say we must do something. When will we start? And what we're seeing with this declaration is that this is the day that we start. So I think that's part of it, that every day, this is going to be a long-term campaign. Because it's a long-term campaign, there is never that sense of urgency. So that's why what I interpret the words climate emergency to mean is, for goodness sake, we must start and we must all do something. And if that finally conveys a sense of urgency to the community, then that's a good thing. In terms of, is this going to impose extra costs on us? Climate change is going to impose extra costs on us at any rate to respond to drier summers, more rainfall in the winter, and higher sea levels, and also to reduce our carbon emissions. So all of that was coming at any rate. I look at the words, because I am quite a cynic when it comes to declarations, make sure that we aren't locked into anything. Publicly declare, recognise, commit to examining, prioritise collaboration, recognise that transparency and accessibility of information is important. These are not expensive words on their own. These are just putting down what the concerns of our community, of the world is. But it's going, so the climate change is already here. This is just a call to arms.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, I find that response really quite challenging. To suggest that today would be the first time that we started doing anything, which is what you just told us, just seems not in line with everything that we've been doing over the 3 years here, where we've fast-tracked an LED program, we've doubled the footpath budget, we've put significant more money into active transport and public transport. All these activities that I can think of that have absolutely been focused on improving our response to climate change and adaptation and into the future. So are you really saying that so far we've done nothing?
So during submissions, you would have heard the Kapiti Coast District Council mentioned several times. That was the council I was at. We completed our CMARS assessment 7 or 8 years ago. You heard how much that council has reduced its climate emissions. This council is doing things, but this is the time to start climbing a steeper slope, I think is what I'm saying. I absolutely accept this council is doing stuff. We just need to do more. And it's not just this council, it's everybody needs to do more. But there is an expectation that local government will play a leadership role.
Sure.
Councillor, I'd also just say to you that in terms of, it is around a sea change, and it's around a sea change because actually it has to sit in this room. And I listened to the Minister talk about the importance of actually the governance direction, sending the governance direction, absolute clarity, so that when those asset and activity management plans come back to us, you're going to get quality advice around climate change. And that's what this is about. It's making sure that it's there, you have it in front of you, and it's not just one of the priorities we are dealing with. It isn't actually, it sits up there. It's right on the top of it.
Okay. Can I ask what the impact of the recent fire emergency response was on council budget and work programs?
I think we estimated we lost 15% of our staff for those 2 or 3 weeks. So I haven't had quantified it. I intend to do that over the next couple of days for my performance review report. And I know that the CE of Tasman District Council has, so I will be pirating some of her information. But it is quite extensive, just what a big chunk that took out of our organisation.
Okay, does this climate change situation meet the definition of emergency in a local government context?
Through the chair, the assessment is that it doesn't meet the definition under the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Act, which is where you would be looking. No, it does not. There's 3 parts to the assessment, and this would not meet that. So it doesn't trigger powers under that act.
Okay, is the organisation set up or resourced to deliver a sustained emergency type response over an indefinite period? What would be the impact on the existing work program?
I think we've already talked about that climate change is something that is becoming more and more incorporated into our work programs and is going to require more and more time of our staff. I will know more once we've worked through these activity management plans and they've been workshopped with the councillors, and you get to decide what the priorities are and what you want to tackle first.
Okay, and final question from me for now, Madam Mayor. This idea has come to us just this week, very short notice. Can you outline, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to, but can you outline the process that Environment Canterbury or Christchurch City Council have taken in considering this issue and how that differs from the approach taken in this council?
I don't know if one of the officers has gone through the Environment Canterbury report. I don't know whether Mark or Melissa have. I've gone through some of it. I know that they've had a relationship certainly with Ngāi Tahu, sort of working through that. What I would say, just coming back to actually the iwi question, and I should have remembered this because I had looked at it some time ago when the declaration came out in the UK Parliament. But all of our iwi are members of the Iwi Chairs Forum of New Zealand, and the Iwi Chairs Forum have. They have said, iwi leaders say New Zealand should declare an environment and climate emergency as British Parliament did this week. This issue is probably the biggest issue that humanity has ever faced. So I think all of our iwi are members, and so that is on behalf of the Iwi Chairs Forum. I think we could conclude that iwi, for iwi, climate change is a very important issue and one of concern. I could read you more, but I think it won't become as any surprise. Where were we? Oh, Councillor Rutledge, another question.
Okay, because I do know that they've had it in front of their council for at least a month. There's been multiple meetings, multiple chances for engagement, discussion. So I'm just wondering why we have taken the approach we have here as opposed to it just seems this process is counter to every value of good governance that has been attempted to be built and led by you, Madam Mayor, over this term. The report is incredibly light. There have been big steps missed.
That is disrespectful to the officers. I'm sorry, the officers have answered in terms of the report when they're satisfied, and I'm sorry.
So, Madam Mayor, we asked the question: have we conducted the usual engagement process with iwi on something? And the answer is no. So I think the idea that a step's been missed is reasonable.
I think the officers have answered in terms, I think describing the report as incredibly light, when the officers have actually said they've satisfied that they've had adequate time to prepare this report to present it to you is not respectful language in relation to the quality of the advice we get from our officers.
I withdraw that statement, Madam Mayor, and I'll couch it in my own, from my own personal view, that for the biggest decision that I think is in front of this council during the term I've been here, I feel like the level of information that has been able to be provided is less than I would have liked and would have expected.
Fine, that's a statement.
So I have no issues with it. It is a bit tiresome, the sniggering from behind, Madam Mayor. I have no.
Could I just, Councillor Rush, could I just ask the public gallery if you could just really try and be quiet? I know that it's really, it's a long process, but I do want the councillors to really focus on what they're doing here.
I'm sorry you thought we were sniggering. We were just rather shocked. This is an emergency.
All right, we will just keep. We were doing really well, and we're going to keep doing really well. And we'll just keep focused in here on what we've got to do.
So I am absolutely on board with the idea that the state of our climate is of absolute critical importance. We are sitting in a certain context, and so I believe that we are struggling to meet the standards of good decision making that Madam Mayor you've demanded. So what the question is do you believe we have all the information about the implications of this decision in front of us today?
Are you asking me or the officer?
The officers, of course.
So today's decision, as I said, I looked at the declaration on its own, and the bare bones of it, it has no cost implications for us at all. And as I've already explained, our response to climate change is going to have implications, which we're going to do at any rate. All this is doing is simply announcing to the world that we are responding.
Thank you. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think this is a really exciting day for Nelson, and I hope we do get this over the line. But I do want this to have meaning. And I'm hearing a lot of talk about emergency and crisis, and then I hear talk about planning and strategy and things that will be will be done over time. And I feel a contradiction in those two. So what I want to know is if, or hopefully when, we adopt this, how long will it take for us to do something as a result of it? For example, how long would it take us to 3-lane Waimea Road so we could have an exclusive bus lane and an EV lane down there? How long would it take us to complete our cycle network that's long overdue? How long would it take us to establish a moratorium on the burning of coal in Nelson City? How long will it take for this declaration to actually result in some change?
I don't know, councillor. I mean, that's in your hands, not mine. We can provide advice about how to accelerate things, what it would take to get things done. Some can be done more quickly than others, and I think that, and if the vote is yes today, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you'd get an idea of how we could start to accelerate. But most of that acceleration discussion will be in the activity management plans that are presented over the following 12 months. But some of the stuff that you've outlined, yeah, will take a very long time.
Thank you. Councillor Walker, were you on my list?
I'm not on the list, but I just wonder whether I might get the opportunity
Your amendment, okay, we can do that. Do you want me to speak to, do you mind if I just, well, no, actually, I suppose you can, I was going to speak to the motion because I haven't done that yet, but. Oh, yes, we need to go to Ian. All right, we'll just go for questions to Ian. So we'll take all the questions first, will we? All right, all the questions. Councillor Barker, we'll get him back online. Yes. Hello, Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I am here.
Thank you for your patience. Any questions for the officers?
I've been listening to the questions. I've got no questions for the officers. I'm just waiting to see the debate.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barker. All right, so we've got an amendment signalled by Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move an amendment that I'd like to move one of the options. I'm concerned about the level of questioning that's been going on, and that relates to the lack of information that a number of us feel. Rush decisions don't generally lead to good governance, and we've heard this many times in this room. So, as Chair of Works and Infrastructure, we have got planned $40 million worth of work for the next 10 years. And it's really important for me to know what the implications of this will be on that. I support the recommendation that you have up there as far as its meaning and its purpose. But I don't believe it's responsible to make that decision with its implications at 2 days' notice as to where we are now. So I would like to move that we adopt option 2, which is to defer it, maybe only for a few days, but at least give us a chance to sit down and reasonably consider it, draw a deep breath, and take it forward in a structured way. I seconded the motion that enabled this meeting to occur today, purely so that it would give us the opportunity to move it forward. And that's really, really important in my mind. So I would like to move then that we adopt option 2, which is to defer.
And I would like to second that. I think we will be in a better position with a little bit of time.
All right, well, I'll adjourn so you can work on some words for Robin. So I'll adjourn for a few minutes while you bring some words up.
Yeah, it's already there.
Well, no, you need to bring some words up for the recommendation. I'll adjourn, you bring the words up to Robin. resume the meeting. Look, I understand that it's obviously been quite a long break. I understand that there's been some discussion. Councillor Walker and Councillor Noonan have just been working through with the officers. And Councillor Walker, would you like to update us?
Yes, yeah, I'd like to put before the meeting the amendment, please.
Oh, okay. Now we're going to need Councillor Barker. Are you there? Hang on. Well, Councillor Barker. Councillor, you've been very patient. Now we've got an amendment, and I'll just ask somebody to read that who's got better eyesight than me, even though that's big print.
Okay.
So we've just, could someone read? Robin's going to read the amendment.
Hi, Councillor Barker. The amendment is receives the report, declaration of climate change emergency and its attachment as it stands, defers the declaration of a climate emergency for consideration at the annual plan deliberations meeting on 4 June 2019 and requests the Chief Executive develop a program of council actions that will support the aforementioned declaration and that this be included in the Council Annual Plan Deliberations Report, including the impacts on Council's work programme.
All right.
Thank you. I hear that and understand it.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Walker. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Noonan. Any questions on the amendment? Councillor Fulton.
So I have a question for the officers. In my mind, if that recommendation went through, then the staff would need to prepare a report and potentially waste precious staff time without knowing that we had actually declared a climate change emergency. So in terms of staff time, how do you see that working if you don't know that there's been a declaration made? How do you prepare a report considering that declaration?
Through the chair, yes, it would take some time without any certainty that the declaration would occur, but we can provide that information for the 4th.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm not going to take too many questions on this because it should be pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Delberg.
One of my concerns is the legal advice being in-house. Has that been peer reviewed on our significance? And if so, can that be added into the report?
Yes, so we've had it reviewed with an external legal advice. It's also consistent with what we've seen with the ECAN report, which I believe was also legally reviewed.
Can we be provided with that advice then? Thank you.
Through the chair, given the fast-moving nature of this, a lot of that was verbal, so it was telephone calls after they'd received the report, but we could go back, if you want us to, and get them to provide further, like in writing. Yes, and Local Government New Zealand have also reviewed it for us and supported our conclusion.
The reason I'm concerned about this is that you seem to spend about 7 years on someone down the main street in the city bylaw when we don't do a thorough job of coming up with it.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. This is the amendment. So everyone understands what this is. This is the amendment. So I'm going to put... You're right, Councillor Barker.
I would like to speak to it, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry. We're going to speak to it. Yes, I'm sorry. I feel like I've been here long enough that we should have by now. So, Councillor Barker, I'm about to do speaking to the amendment. So I will... would you like to speak to the amendment?
I do wish to.
Thank you. I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. So I want to start off by saying I like to keep my feet on the ground. And I am very concerned that whatever we do, we ensure that our community, the wider community, is involved. Particularly in an instance like this, where this declaration of emergency has the implications of massively increasing taxes for parking and all sorts of other things, which will have a big impact on people. And our people, we've only heard from the fervent people who are pushing for the climate change. We haven't heard from those that will be affected by what could happen. I'd like to to myself prefer to take practical steps. I want to push our waste to energy possibilities, waste, because we have a crisis of recycling. I want to push solar generation. I think what we're doing today, if you do it today, it's far too rushed. The community hasn't been involved. And I think, I just really think the amendment is the way to go, because it gives us the opportunity not to be seen to be doing something symbolic. It's not important to me to be first or second. What's important to me is that we take good practical steps and we do our homework. And I think this is just an example of not doing our homework and not consulting our people. So I speak strongly in favour of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker in favour of the amendment, Councillor Noonan. And Councillor Walker, did you wish to speak to this as the mover? Need to? All right, thank you, Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I think in principle, we all agree that there is an issue. The issue I have today is the fact that it's been so rushed. I'd like to be able to go and discuss this with the people that are in the community. We've been in the building since we got the paper. I haven't had any discussions with the community at all. Haven't had the opportunity to have that discussion. The reason why we want a little bit longer is for us to actually, I think we'll come to the same conclusion that with your original recommendation, that we will get there. I think it's just we need a little bit more time. I'm requesting that the councillors respect that we might not all be at the same starting block as others, and that we need to bring other people with us as well. So do you want all of us there so that we can do it together, or are you going to leave us all behind? Because we're obviously not in the same spot and we need to get there, but we just need a little bit more time. Councillor Rutledge and then Councillor Delbourg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the very brief time that we've had this concept put in front of us, I've done my best to talk to as many people as possible, to look on at what other councils and jurisdictions have done. What I've found is that the nature and intent of the declarations of climate emergency that have been made are varied. Their association resolutions, as I could see them, are really all different. And it demonstrates that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. I'd even note that what we have in front of us here is really quite different to what was put in front of ECAN in terms of the detail and behind it and the implications in setting up for our community. Well, we say this, what does it practically mean? And to me, that's what's really missing here, and what I'd be looking for with the benefit of a couple of more weeks of everyone's time. I'm really disappointed that we're being asked to make a snap decision on what I consider the most important issue that's come in front of this council table in my 3 years here. The process that we're going through breaches every principle of good governance that we've tried to develop over this term. The report.
Are you on that one? No, that's not. I'm sorry. I think that's misleading. It's a misstatement about what's here. You've had the staff advice, Councillor. I need you to withdraw that statement.
Okay, I'll withdraw that statement and say, in my opinion, this breaches my personal values around what good governance is and what we've tried to develop over this term. For me, the report raises far more questions than it answers. We're not afforded the opportunity for our community to be heard on this proposal. We haven't brought them along with us on it, nor do we have any idea about what the implications of making such a declaration actually are. I, for one, think words matter. If I say something is an emergency, I would expect to act in a way that gives effect to that. And I cannot today say that we are in a position to act in a way that an emergency would dictate that we do. I've heard, and I've been asking as we go, huge variation from people in what they think emergency action looks like, from let's hunker down to wartime mentality through to, actually it's pretty well status quo, but the words are nice. I want to know what that means around this table and for our community. Making this decision, making a declaration today will force council and the members around the table, in my opinion, to overpromise and underdeliver. This runs counter to what I believe our community expects from us, from its political leaders, and what my personal values demand I do. My concern is that making a declaration today will be a lightning rod for division and not a rallying cry for united action. The shotgun process is therefore forcing me to vote against a declaration today, so I will be supporting this amendment, despite my personal belief that responding to climate change is a matter of significant importance and one I exercise my own mind to in my own life every day.
Thank you. Councillor Delberg, speaking to the amendment.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. And I'm in this maturing where I'm very proud of the work that our council's delivered over the past 2 years, especially on environment, and that leads into climate change aspects. Plus the actual work we set forward with the council going forward. This is a continuous process. Then suddenly to move from a pragmatic, positive, deliverable process to what looks like a symbolic gesture process with not a lot of teeth in it, to public being first is a step backwards for me. And what is a real major challenge being the impact of climate change. And I've been carbon neutral now for over 20 years. It's something I do quietly. What I see here now is we're rushing this through to be first, and we're getting away from what we're here for, which is governance, discussion with the people that actually we represent, and the fact we've actually got the word emergency in front of climate now. We didn't have 4 days ago. And I'm more comfortable considering option 2 because it gives more time. It's more in tune with our agree robust process. More importantly, it allows our staff a chance to deliver a more professional report with cost options and to include our partners, which again, I consider very important to me, that when we say to our partners we're going to do something, we actually do. And I think that's shown over some of the bylaws we've done in the last 2 years. To myself, I think this actual recommendation now allows us to look very professional, come back and make a decision. I still think we're going to get the outcome everybody wants, but then I can actually truly say, heart on hand, I actually had a thorough discussion, I debated it, I talked to my community, I talked to my partners, the people who actually put me here, and then I can come back and actually say, this is what we're going to do going forward. Not just some thing that says we had our fingers crossed and it didn't mean anything. And I also struggle with that legal opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking against the amendment. Al Gore's landmark documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, came out in 2006, 13 years ago. We've known about this for a very long time. There is massive scientific consensus around the world about the dangers of global warming, and there is massive consensus in the scientific community about the massive problem of inaction. This isn't going to change everything in Nelson, but it is a big step in the right direction. Nelson, I believe, was one of the first cities in New Zealand to declare itself nuclear free. That did not stop a US ship from actually parking up in Port Nelson, but it was a significant part of a movement that led to fundamental change in New Zealand, that was important for our identity, that was important for world peace, that showed Nelson and New Zealand as leaders. This is another one of those opportunities. When you get an opportunity like this, I don't think kicking it down the road is the thing to do. I think leadership is about sometimes taking the harder route, it's about making the hard decision, sometimes it's about taking a bit of a risk. But it is about making things happen, and we have a chance to do that today. So I attended the school strike for climate. There were 4,000 young people there. It was just about the most moving thing I've ever seen, and they were saying, time's up. It is time for action. For this council to reach this point and to say, oh, can we just have a bit longer, please? It's just not good enough. So I appreciate the sentiment behind the amendment. I honestly do, but I can't support it.
Councillor Fulton.
Oh yes, thank you through the chair. I totally concur with Councillor Laurie, and I think we need to look to our past, our nuclear-free moments, our strikes for apartheid. When I was a little girl, that was the first time I participated in activism, a strike against the Springbok tours down on Trafalgar Street. So I want to thank the Extinction Rebellion activists and the school strike activists who have come to us and told us very clearly that they want action now. I think Extinction Rebellion submitted to us in April, or was it April? And in the same way they submitted to Environment Canterbury, they went to Environment Canterbury, they demanded that an emergency climate declaration be made, and Environment Canterbury has responded without any consultation with its community. They just responded to that submission from Extinction Rebellion. We've gone an extra step. We've gone out to our community and asked them what they would like us to do. The community has had an opportunity to respond. There's been an outstanding number of submissions, all asking us to go further than what we had proposed, and I think we need to recognise that and pick up on this momentum. The time is now to say, yes, this is our opportunity to make the differences, to change business as usual and to respond to this really serious climate. It is a crisis, but we can call it an emergency response, because an emergency response gives hope that we are going to do something and we're taking action, and we will be mitigating for the effects of greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm going to speak against the motion in front of us now. I think that it is, there are times when councils have to follow process, and we are renowned for our slow, it's like driving a giant Titanic ship at times in this place, and we have cogs which go round and round and round in circles, and time after time after time I hear back from our community that they have given up because they have come in, they have asked us to do things, they've come in and they've asked us to do things, and they've come in again and they've asked us, and we have not responded in a timely manner. So we are at that critical moment where we need to show our community that we have listened, and we have listened today. I just wanted to remind some of the councillors who are thinking of voting for this recommendation that our values at the start of our term included having courage, being bold, trailblazing, having a sense of purpose, demonstrating excellence, raising the bar, effectiveness, resourcefulness, compassion, empathy, humility, servantship and leadership towards our community, and most of all our kaitiakitanga. So showing that we want to be guardians for our city, for our community, for our local biodiversity, but also for our planet.
Public gallery, this is going to be really hard to do, but one of the things I know about the challenge of sitting at this table and expressing your view is that in communities there will be a range of views, and I love the fact that you love the messages, but I'm going to really ask you to just respect all of the views in this room, even if you don't agree with them. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm voting against this amendment, and as you some may or may disagree, I tend to think I'm often the most pragmatic at this table, and I don't rush decisions, but this is not one that needs to be deferred. When I stood for council, I didn't need to go, I need to defer this decision a few weeks' time. You know what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. And those might say they need some more time to talk to the community. We've been on this term for nearly 3 years talking to the community. You should have already spoken to the community about topics like this. I've sat through 3 days of this. The community has spoken various views. I don't need to go back out there more time. This is one of the turning points. Mrs. reached this topic of climate emergency. My boys, similar to me, they enjoy their milkshakes and pies and probably talk a lot of football. But they said to me, they came home from school and said, "Dad, this climate change, this is what the talk in the playground is." What do you mean? And they don't normally talk about stuff like that. But they said, "Dad, shivers, anyone who doesn't support this or get ahead of us shortly and sharply won't be here next election." But they were speaking on behalf of the kids, and I often think kids have still got a few years to develop their views, but it's sort of indicative of more of across the board. But no, I support that we make this decision today.
Reckland.
No, look, I don't think I need to add anything more. I think, at the risk of playing to the gallery, I don't need to add anything more. I might save it for the substantive motion.
Now I'm going to put the amendment. All those in, so, division, right.
So this is for the amendment?
No. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Ackland?
No.
Councillor Barker?
Yes.
That was an aye.
That was an aye.
Councillor Courtney?
No.
Councillor Delberg?
Yes.
Councillor Fulton?
No.
Councillor Laurie?
No.
Councillor McGurk?
No.
Councillor Matheson?
No.
Councillor Noonan? Councillor Rutledge?
Yes.
Councillor Skinner?
No.
Councillor Walker? And the Mayor?
No. The amendment is lost. 8 votes to 5. We're now going to go back to the substantive motion, actually we're going to back to what was moved. And I'm going to ask, have we got any more questions in relation to what is there? I think we've had the questions. We're now going into debate. I'm going to speak first in the debate as the mover. I'm just going to put, we've just put you on mute, Councillor Barker, but I will come back to you, I promise. Robin's keeping an eye on me. Councillors, consensus is really important to me. And I've been sitting in this chair now for, as Mayor for nearly 6 years. And I've been sitting in this chamber for nearly 12 years. And I spent a lot of time sitting at the other end of that table before I started to sit at this table. And so for those of you who come in to submit, I absolutely know what it's like to sit at the end of that table. And I know what it's like to go away and feel like I have not been heard. I know the level of frustration. I can tell you this council was this council that drove me to absolute distraction and passion over changing the rules on methyl bromide fumigation. And that was one hell of a battle. It really, really was, to do something that for me felt like the absolutely humane thing to do and the right thing for the environment. And the only way that I could ever do it was because I had good people in this community that stood up and gave me pro bono time. Planners, a lawyer who's no longer with us, but the father of one of our staff members who was just a most amazing man, and without him I could never have done it. There are times when you sit in this chair and you think you're wasting your time, and there are other times when you think actually you've got an opportunity to do something. I played you a video in my Mayor's report a few months ago. I played you the video of just part of it, of Penelope Leah. Do you remember that? Do you remember Penelope Leah, the Eat Lancet, when they were reporting on doing the Eat Lancet report, and she said she was standing there, but like Greta, a young woman, but like all of our students, like Josephine and Emma, who led the climate march here, saying it is late, but it is not too late. But the window is closing so quickly, and it's the window of opportunity. It is the window of opportunity to deliver a better future for our children and our grandchildren. For me, when I sit at this chair, many of the decisions that I make They're not for me. I won't even see the outcome of many of those decisions in my lifetime. And I know for those, and I look at the Deputy Mayor, I know he's made decisions as well over the time where he knows it's going to take decades. And every mayor who sits in this chair knows that. And for those of you who come to citizenship ceremony, you will hear me talk about that when I wear the mayoral chains, I wear them with the names of all the former mayors who have served this community. And I think about the legacy that they left and the decisions that they made, ones that they never saw in their term of office, the results of those, and this is one of them. This is an opportunity to respond to the business community. You have heard from Paul Morgan this morning. You have heard how important it is for a region that focuses its economic wealth largely on the primary sector to be really moving fast on innovation. You heard or saw, possibly you did, and you saw the economic results and the impact for New Zealand king salmon, one of our major employers and export earners, the result of rising sea temperatures now. They desperately need help to work out what they're going to do next. And at the moment, it's about creating a plan that is better than the planning system that we've got now, better than the laws and the regulations that are actually in some way designed for a different time. They're the ones that say, we'll do it the way we used to do it because that will work in the future. Some things will, but a lot of things won't. And you've heard the business community come in. You heard Rachel Brown come in this morning and say, this is about being able to flex and move. And that's something that local government is not particularly good at. And actually, that's one of the reasons that I want to get this declaration in place, because I want a different way of doing business. I put it out in the long-term plan, this is a city that wants to lift council performance. And this is the lever to start that process so the staff in this organisation can actually respond to innovation. When they see opportunities about to embark on green infrastructure solutions, they can actually do it rather than be hamstrung by a set of documents that make it difficult for them to move. If I think about the civil defence emergency process that we've just gone through, one of the reasons that I'm putting this to you today is because we do need to think about a different emergency plan. Climate change is affecting the emergencies that we are seeing in our region, and they are only going to escalate. And I have to say to you that I have walked away from this year's one, and I suspect Mayor Richard feels exactly the same way. And it's certainly what we've presented to the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, to say this is unsustainable. We cannot continue to try and do our day job at the same time as resourcing up to deal with emergency management. It is just going to become impossible. They are coming too fast and too often, and we're going to have to do something different and think differently. These are major, major challenges for us. This for me is also about good risk management, and I sit on the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee with some of you, and I think this is actually a response to good risk management. Why is it here today? Because the previous Friday I was in Invercargill with Steve Lowndes, who's the Chair of Environment Canterbury, and we were both discussing how we felt about the urgency of actually moving forward our organisations on climate change innovation. And the Chair of Environment Canterbury gave the direction to his Chief Executive, and believe me, that's no mean feat, to say, I want this up, and I want it up for this Thursday, and I want to get this up to give our community that chance. I read all of those submissions in the annual plan, and I read those, and I've been communicating with many people in our community, and they see a real chance for Nelson, the smart little city, to actually be a leader in climate change innovation and response, and I believe we can do it. We are sitting in a region with scientists, with researchers. The messages that I've had from major heads of universities have come through to say, do this, go for this. We're there, we want to support you. And you heard the comments this morning. If you want to attract and if you want to retain talent and you want to attract talent, get out there and be a leader. And that's what we said we wanted to do. We said we wanted to be a city that retained, attracted and developed talent. And if we're going to have a focus around the smart city, let's make it one that is really embedded in climate change. I'm going to stop talking now. But I have to say that this is not something I have done lightly, and I bring it to you with the hope that you will treat it with a generosity of spirit. I am sorry if I can't bring all of you forward on this. I really hope you can, because you've got an opportunity to look at the detail of it when it comes back to the deliberations report to make a good start. All right, I'm going to start the speaking order, and I'm going to actually, it's going to be really tricky. How would you like me to do this? I imagine you're all going to speak, and I'm just going to go around the table. All right, I'm going to go around the table. Councillor Ackland first. Are you right with that, Councillor Skinner? He's fine with that. Councillor Ackland.
Yeah, you're good. It's nice, just to debate the issue, obviously. It's nice to have people that we don't often see in the public gallery getting behind an issue that means so much to the community. And I think there needs to be a real understanding, though, that we're in an election year and sometimes the rhetoric won't necessarily meet the reality. And that it's up to all of us to make sure that this is a sea change event and this does write a new script for Nelson, because that's the thing that I expect. If it is a Titanic, Councillor Fordham, which means we're inevitably going to hit an iceberg, but I hope that actually what we are doing is actually charting a new course. That's what I expect this to be. This is charting a new course. This is the day of a sea change. This is the day of a crossroad. And that does mean there ought to be, following this, a real commitment to resources to address the issue. It's no good making promises. We need to commit resources, and this is a time now for change. That's what I've been hearing very loudly and clearly, and that's certainly what I'm going to be doing. My voting record, and it's up to us, but my voting record is going to be behind making sure that that happens.
Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, through the chair. This is near the end of my 9th year on council, and one of the reasons why I stood for council all those years ago was I had a passionate interest in our planetary health. I really cared about people and I really cared about our biodiversity, but I very much cared about our planet and what was happening. I was fortunate enough to learn about climate change while studying a chemistry degree at Canterbury University, so I might have been one of the early understanders, one of the early converters, and we banged out numbers on computers and saw the effects of climate change very early on these very ancient computers. And for me, someone said to me recently, oh, everything you do seems to be around climate change. And I was like, well, yes, because it is the most important issue facing our planet right now. We know that we have lost millions of species through biodiversity loss. We know that communities are suffering, and we know that extreme weather events is causing even greater suffering. We can see our Pacific Island neighbours are already having to build seawalls just to maintain their beaches and coastlines, and we are 30 years too late, but we are not too late. And for me, it is an emergency, and I am so grateful to our community for coming forward and speaking. I just wanted to show you, I heard Kate Rayworth talk last week in Parliament, and she signed my book, and she says, to Kate, here's to the future of Nelson, Kate Rayworth. Now, Kate Rayworth has written a book on donor economics, and in it she talks about the importance of understanding the ecological ceiling of our planet. Our planet cannot cope with humans carrying on with business as usual anymore. We have to change the way we live our lives, and we have to choose to live lives which are compassionate and have a strong social foundation, but also have a strong respect for the ecological ceiling of our planet. And our greenhouse gases are one of the biggest things we can do in terms of changing that outcome into the future. So hearing her, she also touched on activism, and she said we can all be activists, but we're activists in different ways. So there's external activism in the people who can speak strongly on the streets and shout out and say this is important and we need your voices. And then there's internal activism as well, and within our organisation we have an opportunity to actually start to steer our community in the right direction, start to support the central government initiatives in the right direction, and then that means that New Zealand is leading the world, and hopefully one city after another we start to see these changes. We know of other cities in the world which have initiated small but significant changes. San Francisco has been composting all of its food waste since 1985. New York City has introduced a scheme of meat-free Mondays for all of its school kids. There are lots and lots and lots of ways in which we address climate change. It's not just about roads and cars and cycling. It is a very important part of it, but we need to look at all systems and all ways that we live our lives into the future. So I'm going to support this, and I am for me, it's a very exciting moment. It's making history in New Zealand. It is our nuclear-free moment. This declaration is of significance in terms of its symbolism, but also I'm very much looking forward to the report coming back during the deliberations.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to support this motion too. It signals to the wider New Zealand and to our community that we are serious, that we do care, we really do care about our precious environment and about our climate, and we're going to signal, we're going to make a declaration. And I listened carefully to people at the head table here today that I respect and trust who said that it is a declaration. It's signalling that we are going to bring down a report after this. We're going to bring down an action plan. So I believe there will be plenty of opportunity for the community, and that's important. We all believe that, to be involved in this. At the time the report comes down, and then we formulate our action plan. And the hard work will start then. And I mean really hard work. Because there will be changes, big changes to our lives, and we have to accept that. It's just an excellent moment to just pause and make this decision early, because in public life, there are moments where you have to make a decision like this, stand up and make a decision on behalf of the community. You apply your judgment on serious and very important decisions. And I listened to our colleagues over on the other side. They're saying that they wanted to include the community, and yes, we all do. We want to take them on this journey. But this is so important, and there will be opportunities, I feel, after listening to the head table, after listening to Officer McDonald and our Chief Executive, there will be plenty of opportunity to involve the community at the report stage, as I said a moment ago, and when the action plan is being formulated. So we as leaders have to stand up and lead and make a decision, make a judgment on behalf of the community, and that's what the community at these times expects us to do. So I'm happy to support the
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I will also speak in support of the recommendation up there. And in doing so, I need to acknowledge more than 80 submissions in terms of the climate change and the term annual plan. But I also need to acknowledge all the previous individuals and groups that have come to this council to ask us to address the impact of rising sea levels, increasing temperatures and climate change. This is not new. To say that we need more time, I think, is easy to kick the thing down the road. The question I ask myself is, if not now, when? If not us, then who? If not this, then what? If not here, then where? This is, it is the beginning of a lot of work. I recall last year, I think it was about almost just over 12 months ago, a report came to council about a climate change report. And there it outlined some actions and operations the Nelson City Council will do in terms of response to climate change. So this is not new. And I'm reflecting on that report since then. I think there was an opportunity there that we didn't take. We could have taken the opportunity at that stage to set our long-term goals of becoming carbon neutral by 2045 in line with the zero carbon bill. And we would have joined a lot of other councils at that stage: Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, Palmerston North, Northern Region, Southern Region, Whangarei, Hutt City, Queenstown Lakes, to name a few, but we didn't. There's an opportunity now then to get back on track and actually confront the issues that are of importance to our community. So I urge all around the table to support this recommendation. It is a way forward. It is the beginning.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am supporting the declaration of climate emergency. But first, I want to recognise the really good work of council staff over the years that I've been on council to actually try and do something about climate change and to try and protect our taonga, that is our environment. And I particularly want to recognise the efforts of Group Manager for Environmental Management, Claire Barton. Those guys work really, really hard. Sometimes they want to go faster and do things better than the group around this table want to. So I think it's important we acknowledge them and their work. I want to thank the Extinction Rebellion crew, and I want to thank everyone who took part in the school strike for climate. I believe that without your efforts and without the efforts of those students, there is no way we would be doing this here today. You made this happen. Thank you. I don't think without your commitment, passion, work and effort, we'd be doing this. So I really take my hat off to you. I'm supporting this, but I am sceptical. And I am sceptical because of this council and its mayor's historic enthusiasm for the Southern Link. And I am sceptical because of the way this city still encourages people every day to drive in their cars by themselves at the same time as everyone else. But I am hoping that this will be the start of more good change. I am a little bit worried that in the report it says that this does not bring with it any formal duties to take action and it does not have legal effect. I kind of hope that might be coming next. And what I do really believe is that at the very least this is going to make it harder for this city and for this council to do new things that are damaging to the environment. So I'm really, really thrilled about that. But I also want it to have meaning. And if it is going to have meaning, it is going to be up to you guys. It is going to be up to all the people who submitted. It's going to be up to the kids who stood on the church steps. It's going to be up to the voters and the citizens of Nelson to hold this council to account, to use this declaration to hold this council to account, to make sure we actually do meaningful change. And if we don't, if people around this table do not vote in a way that leads to meaningful change, I want you to vote them out. Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like those in the gallery to note that I could have voted for option 3, which was to can it. I did not. I voted to delay it so that I could consider it more. I am chairman of the Works and Infrastructure Committee that authorises the spend of an awful lot of money, and I just wanted to know the implications that that might have on that activity. It's $400 million in the next 10 years to bring us up to date in our infrastructure. Those that know me as one of New Zealand's pioneers in renewable energy field, going back 40 years, when I struggled up and down the country to install tiny little solar panels, which gave people an awful lot of hope in our future. Those people that know me doing that work will know my feelings on this issue. I also feel it is important to be not united on this climate change issue that we face. I have not changed my mind. I will support this.
Yes. Councillor Rutland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think back to the first annual plan that I was involved with when I sat around this table. From memory, we had about 400 submissions from the mountain bike club that went, give us $1 million. No plan about how that might be spent. No idea about what it might deliver. No case behind it. And rightly, this council said no. But what it did is it said, let's talk. Let's build a effective relationship and let's create this thing together. And now we have a really good working relationship between the council and the mountain bike club that is delivering fantastic results for its members, for the residents of Nelson, for people who want to come here, and we're in a much better footprint. We're in a much better state because we took the time and we did it properly. This feels similar to me. We have heard from people who have said, we'd really like you to consider this. But this time we've just said, yep, okay, let's chuck it up. Now, when I listened to Mr. Morgan today, I listened carefully. I didn't hear him say, yes, call an emergency. He said, give me some solid action and direction. I do not believe this does that. Obviously, my definition and understanding of what an emergency means and what one does if faced with an emergency is different to other people, and that's okay. When I sign my name to something, I mean it, and I expect action, not words. So my challenge to everyone around the table who probably will vote this through today is there's going to be some really hard choices come up that I expect we will have to make. So let's have the courage of the conviction if it goes through today. What is an emergency response? Does that mean that we should shut petrol stations, tell the port that we control not to bring fuel in anymore, tell the airport that we control, tell people not to go on overseas holidays because that's unnecessary and very bad for the climate? Gee, should we implement a one-child policy because that would have a bigger impact on the climate than anything else? Or should we do nothing at all and just put it up as a statement, which if I read the ECAN report, basically that's what they've said. Actually, we're making the statement, but then status quo from here on. I don't know what this means.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I don't believe that the ECAN report, I think he's misrepresented their intentions that it's status quo from this point on.
Is anyone able to help me with any information with that? They put out a media release, I think. Is there anything in that? I'll just have to pause for a moment to see if so I can get some information to determine
I have read it, Madam Mayor.
The other point of order is I don't think any of our submitters have asked for any of the items which Councillor Rutledge has raised in terms of part of the climate change emergency declaration.
I don't think that's something I can rule on. And I think, in fact, I think in the interests of expediency, I'm not going to take the point of order at this point, Councillor Fulton. If some information comes back to me at the end of it, I'll address it. So we'll keep going.
Madam Mayor, I looked at the example that was presented as, I assume because it was presented what the belief was maybe best case would be about a climate emergency declaration from the city of Darebin. And then I looked at what they said they were doing. And I thought about the work program that this council's had. And I thought, we're doing all of that's geographically relevant, plus some more. So what would these words add? There is my challenge. I don't know what the answer is, but it gives me absolutely no joy to say I can't support what's in front of us today. But that's where I'm at.
Councillor Delbert.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm for supporting the community, and I'm for climate change, and I'm for warmer, healthier homes for our needy community. It was something I did 5 years ago, and the target was to do 100 in 1 year. We did 150, and that was working with partnerships in Rata Foundation, Nelson City Council, Nelson Marlborough DHB, Tasman and the Marlborough Councils. Pretty eclectic there. But again, we set about a robust process. It was all about trusting each other. Right now, 4 years later, we're at 1,500 homes. And for every dollar the council puts in, $6.40 comes back into the community through a robust process. You probably gather I'm into that. And then what I tend to find is I just can't believe that report's robust. I can't even believe it's thorough. And really, we are asking before the Mayor mentioned lifting the council performance. And apparently, and Councillor McGurk mentioned, if not when, well, the Chief Executive told you, 4th of June. Apparently, we can't wait 14 days to follow a robust process and a bit of good governance to come to whatever that conclusion is, and I think will be unanimous then. We can't wait 14 days, and apparently you're all telling me you've been doing it for 20 years or more. So next thing then I find, we come in here and we find Mr. Stainton sitting on the road, and what we find out is a lack of a robust process had him alienated, we had to solve. And I find Green Meadows, well then we go back and a lack of a robust process seemed to be the main cause there that's taken up oodles of dollars in council time. Community housing, 20 years. We find people in there were in need. The last 2 years, we tell us. We picked a fabulous group to work with, a Nelson Tasman Housing Trust, which is also with me with Warm and Healthy Homes. And we've now got something that's positive. In actual fact, we're going to try and grow that. Again, a robust process working with them. They're challenging items, not as challenging as climate change, but I'm sure if we follow a robust process, we will get there and we'll have a group of people that are committed to actually doing it, not some. And what I find is when I look at our council values, I see in there having courage, be bold, trailblazing, great. Then also down there I see stewardship and I see governance responsibility. Needs to go hand in hand with that. And through that you actually get honesty and trust and people believe in what we say. And if we're going forward, we need to actually say that we've done a robust process, hands on heart, that we're going to come out with something that they can believe in. And apparently if we're going to get that in 2 weeks' time with this chief executive's more robust than that sort of pretty flimsy report, then I'm prepared to wait 14 days. But if that's what the vote is today, I just find I cannot actually disappointingly agree with that. Major disappointment, but I'm not going to go back on robust processes and half-sucked outcomes that we're all paying for later on, and our business community and our community out there, residents, are not going to actually be happy with. Because you'll be struggling for another 3 years while we sort that out. And that's just something I'm not looking forward to.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Madam Mayor, councillors. A few of us asked for a little bit longer just to be comfortable with the decision, a normal process, a normal amount of time. You weren't able to give that to us for whatever reason. I understand that. I understand when a decision is made that we have to accept it. I accept it. In the end, where I wanted to be is to support this, and I will support this, because I think that in the end it is the right thing to do.
The only thing is that as a chair and as Councillor Walker is also a chair, we take that role very seriously and we want to know what it means. So we're used to having a little bit more information and a little bit more data. And this is a little bit, in my view, a little bit more airy-fairy than I'm used to. But I'll accept it and I'll need some guidance because obviously some of you are way down the track. I think I do my bit personally for the planet. Doing it on a major basis is going to be a step into the abyss for me, so I'll be looking out for some help. But I did want this to be a strong decision around the table, and so I will support this for that reason, because I think in the end we'll get there. So I want to add my support to the end product, if you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, Deputy Mayor.
And let's not forget,
It's been reminded. We'll come to you, Councillor Barker, after the Deputy Mayor.
he's probably had
Before
3 or
Councillor
4
Skinner.
pies at Culverden by now. I'm in my 24th year around this table, and it's only now and then you get issues like this and you have to deal with them. When we had genetic modification came before me as mayor, I thought, how can I handle this one? It wasn't too difficult, really. You just didn't give it any powers. And it stood there as some symbolic gesture and everybody was happy and we could move on. But this one here does have some ramifications. When they asked for a delay today, I respect that. I respect that because you've stuck to your basic principles of how you're going to set your governance in this chamber over how many years. But what we've really done today, I read it, we've started a journey. We haven't made any decisions. We're not here to debate climate change at all. But we've been given an opportunity to start a journey together, and you had your way to go, I have mine. We all now are on the same path. We have to do something about climate change. I think we're going to head into the financial unknown of what this will bring to this table and to this city. And it'll consist of extra resources, mitigation, revisiting some of our plans and our ideas. That's what it's going to be. But in all honesty, I think all of us together, and I mean all of us, are going to be more than satisfied on that journey over whatever period we take. We know what we need to deal with. We know how we basically want to get there to mitigate this problem. And we've been given well, I think I was talking earlier, I didn't expect in my term here to be sitting down and talking about climate change so quickly. But this has happened in a matter of 2 to 3 years, and suddenly you wake up and think, whoops, we better get this job done. But we can only do it with you and others. So others have mentioned the partnership and how we need your support, we need to do it collectively, and that is a very serious and true statement to make. We'll have hiccups on the way, good God. We'll have some mute arguments, and that's always enjoyable here. I mean, Mel loves coming into this chamber and expressing his opinion, even though he doesn't believe himself, but he likes doing that. But that's what this chamber's about, is getting a decision. Not always consensus, but getting a decision for the good of the city, and that's what we were elected to look after. We're here to represent you people, not ourselves. So we're going to be taking this issue and we're going to get going on it, and the chief executive's going to come back and say, well, in 5 years' time we'll be bankrupt. How are we going to overcome that? You know, these are the discussions we will have. So let's just thank these guys for a different pathway, but at the end of the day, we've got the same goals, and you will represent the city, as you do now, extremely well. I'm going to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Barker. Councillor Barker? Oh, Councillor Barker, I'm so sorry. That's terrible for your trip. Councillor Barker?
Do you want to try him off? I do want to give him a chance.
I think it was Paul's speech. He's given up all hope.
Hang on, we're just going to try and get Councillor Barker back on the line. We'll just find you again.
Hello.
Councillor Barker, we've got you.
Yes, I've been trying to speak, but you haven't heard me.
Thank you.
But I have heard everything.
Thank you. It's your turn to speak.
Thank you. I can tell you that I believe I've heard as much waffle in the last 3 days as I've ever heard in my time in council. I really think that our annual plan process has been hijacked. There was no mention of taking any declarations in our annual plan when we put it out. So the only people that have come forward to council have been the people wishing to have this council establish a climate change emergency, not the general public. And that to me is the reason that I was upset yesterday that we were going ahead to have this meeting and not giving the community an opportunity. I think it's been hijacked. I don't think that we really have, no matter what some of the gossip that's been said there this afternoon, we really have Nelson first at heart. Nelson hasn't come first. I'm trying to think of what we've done in the last 6 years, and if this is the greatest thing that we've done in 6 years, apart from a Stoke Community Centre which took months and months and months overdue to do, I'm afraid that I'm not very happy or not very proud of the last 6 years of this council. So I'm sad that it's going ahead without the public having more opportunity to know what they're going to be in for, because believe me, it sounds like they're going to be in for a lot. So when you come to the vote, I'll be voting against. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I came prepared. I collect old, rare books, and this book, 120 years old, titled The Story of the Atmosphere. I threatened Paul Matheson if he didn't vote, I'd read the chapter on climate. But enough of me on that. No, I haven't got any more to add to what's been added. I'm rolling up my sleeves. I don't need to defer a decision. How about you guys? I support what you're in front, and I ask for a division.
Thank you, councillors. I'm just going to exercise my right of reply, and I want to thank you for the way that you have engaged in this debate. There are a diversity of views in our community, and what we know to achieve sustained policy change, you have to take the middle with you. We heard that in the submissions. You really need about 70% of people in a community to actually have sustained policy change. One of the things that I have been watching with real concern, actually on big global issues, big issues, is the operation of the extreme fringes at either end. And I have to say, I met with the Extinction Rebellion group, and I said to them, look, this concerns me, because actually there is the potential here to alienate the middle, and we need the middle if we're going to have sustained policy change. And we had that conversation, and it was a really fruitful conversation. It was really useful, and it was the importance of actually raising issues and getting people talking. And as I started to go through the submissions, and I engaged with conversations with many people in the community on a very regular basis, lots of people come to see me, I go to see lots of people, all walks of life. There are so few people now who don't consider climate change the most serious issue that this planet has got. There are other really serious issues as well. There are serious issues around the issues, and I reflect on the tragedy in Christchurch and what happens when we have polarised views. I reflect on the challenge around housing, I reflect on the challenge around child poverty, and I reflect on the challenge in New Zealand around mental health. There are lots and lots and lots of things for governments, for at local and central government agencies, for non-government agencies, just for everyday people to grapple with. But the one that you just cannot walk past, you cannot walk past it because you are seeing it growing and growing in importance at a very rapid rate, is climate change. And every single one of us has the opportunity to participate in delivering a better future to the children and the grandchildren that we have a responsibility for. Youth councillors came with their survey results. Look at that first one. 94% of their survey, of 94% were yeses. Do you think it is important to protect Nelson's biodiversity, such as healthy streams, measuring greenhouse gases and planning for sea level rise? That's an incredible engagement by young people. You know, Councillor Skinner said he went home and, his son said to him, oh, everyone's talking about that mayor and she's going to do a declaration on climate change. Dad, that's really good. Well, that's amazing. And if that's what it does, that it gets people talking about this, this is a really positive thing. But I also bring this message to you, it's one of hope. I don't come from I'm an eternal optimist. I'm an eternal optimist, and I actually believe that humanity can step up here and make a difference. It is going to be enormously hard, okay, to keep it below to stop temperature going above 1.5. But this community actually has got the capability to make a difference, to look after itself, to be resilient, to recognise we're going to have to adapt. We are. We're going to make decisions around this council table that some of you are sitting here today won't agree with. And I want to encourage you to say, I don't actually agree with the ethos that says if you don't like a decision, vote somebody else. I think you look further than that, because it's not one decision at a time. This isn't a transactional exercise. This is a system change. And there will be decisions that you don't like, and there'll be some you do like, but look long term, look big picture, and remember that when you think about what we've written in here today, what we're asking is we're actually asking for participation, which is what so many in our community have been asking for. It's asking to recognise, and what it's saying is that this does declare that the world is in a state of climate emergency that requires urgent actions by all levels of government. And it goes on, and I don't think there's very many people that would deny that. As Councillor Laurie said, science is united on this. It recognises, and what it's saying is that there's potential for technology and expertise and capacity to mitigate and adapt to this global challenge. And there is, and we see it in our own community. But collaboration is essential. It's got to be one of the actions. It commits us to examine our plans and our work progress and policies to put climate change at the centre and embedded in those plans. Chief Executive's told you, you are going to be doing that, and he's going to be bringing back asset and activity management plans, and that's going to be probably the starting point about the decisions that we make. And it prioritises collaboration, and I'm a huge, huge believer in collaboration, a huge believer of people sitting down together and discussing what's important to them and finding ways of working together. It is not easy. We have to do it on a regular basis, and believe me, there are some days where I really wish that I didn't have to step into this chamber, but usually by the time I step out at the end of the day, I feel pretty good about the role that I've got and the work that you do. That collaboration is going to have to be across all levels. It is going to have to be with iwi, with business, with science providers, with the wider community. It is going to be with other governing bodies. And we're going to need that collaboration to maximise the impact we can have. And it's going to recognise that transparent and available information is key. People need information they can understand to help them make the decisions, and to understand, importantly, the decisions that we are going to make. So here we go. This is an opportunity. I would say to you that when I brought the long-term plan up, started working with Miss McDonald and her team and others, and I said, come on, I want all this climate change in the long-term plan, and I got the advice to say, you're going to have to wait. That was really tough for me, really tough, and I wanted to get in the carbon emissions and get in there and do that. I said, we haven't done any measurement. You're going to have to wait for the CMAR stuff, you're going to have to wait. And I've waited, but we've got it. I haven't seen the results yet, but now we've got it. And by making these steps, it means that we can start the new financial year actually with a very clear position of where we're going, with a focus actually for this community that rings true for me when I say Nelson, the smart little city. I'm going to put the vote and call for a division.
Councillor Ackland. Councillor Barker.
No.
Councillor Courtney.
Aye.
Councillor Delberg.
Aye.
Councillor Fulton.
Aye.
Councillor Laurie.
Aye.
Councillor McGurk.
Aye.
Councillor Matheson.
Aye.
Councillor Noonan. Councillor Rutledge. Councillor Skinner.
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Aye.
And the Mayor.
Aye. The vote is, we're not there yet. Phew, the vote is carried. The vote is carried 10 votes to 3, and I just want to thank you all for your contribution. I'd just like to say now that in doing this declaration, my sister's been watching this. She sent me a text message. It's lovely. I just want to say to you that one thing I should have said in the debate, and I know I shouldn't speak after it, Robin, but I wouldn't have been confident to do this if it wasn't for the team that's sitting beside me and sitting along here and actually inside of me. And I mean that. When I sent a message to say that I wanted to do this, I actually watched the staff in this organisation get pretty excited and enthusiastic. But I have to be very clear, the Chief Executive will not become a vegan, okay? That's one of the conditions. Well done. Okay, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you all for participating. And